Hello, come on in. This is my exhibition called the Solitude Series. This is sponsored by a State Art Board's grant, and this was all done in less than 6 months. Would have never happened if it hadn't been for the funding. It was a very difficult time, sometimes very arduous to paint. Other times I would just throw myself into it and just be in it for days. And well, I needed 16 paintings to fulfill the grant requirements. And what you'll see here are 21 paintings. 3 of those paintings were started before the grant, and 18 of them were all done in less than 6 months from beginning to end. So let's start over here. Fortitude. It begins with a painting that has a lot of emotional content for me personally, because I had my grandson here, and he was wanting to tell me where to place the leaves. And as he was leaving, he said, "Grandma, don't put any more leaves on there until I come back, and I'll let you know where they need to be." And I said, "All right, that sounds great." And that's the last time that he was here at the building. Let's move on. This one, From Rothko's Window. This is very much about social alienation. Rothko, very talented immigrant artist from Russia, and he was very lonely, very poor. When he would look out his window, he would see a cement building with this window that was painted over, and that was very depressing for him. And I switched it up a little bit and put this little girl in the window across from his window. And so you can look at it from his view of, like, maybe if he had had somebody to wave at, he would have felt a little better and more connected. But also the little girl being stuck in there, possibly not being able to go to school because of COVID or something like that. It's a bunch of emotional content, and I've always felt that Rothko's paintings had just a very serious emotional content, even though they're largely abstract. But the color and the vibrations is very intense. So I started using more red during this series, and this is one of those paintings where there's a lot of red. The next one is Cafe Primavera. Now, just as COVID for me was a bit of an emotional roller coaster, this painting is more on the lighter side of things. So this painting was, I really like to go to coffee shops and chat with friends, and I really enjoy going to poetry readings and things like that. And all of that stopped. And so this was me in my head thinking about how incredible it would feel to be able to go to a coffee shop again. And it was like Venus being born out of the sea. So I did sort of a little bit of a play off of Botticelli's Venus there without the half shell, and put a cup of coffee in her hand. Next one, and this will be an emotional roller coaster, I'm warning you. Writing from the Heart. This is about the people who are in hospice, people who couldn't breathe, couldn't have their families around. And I had heard a story that there were people who were trying to write messages to their families for the nurses or doctors to give them. All right, this next one, Stolen Childhood. This is completely about what was going on in the news during this time, which was very hard. So this one shows a little girl, and she's caged. She's in a jail that had been put up on the border. And this is about the whole policy of separating children from their parents. And there's just such a theme of separation through the whole, COVID chapter that we've been living, that that just was really poignant for me. And this next one, Forgotten Ones, are Well, it's open for poetic interpretation, of course, but to me it means the people who've just disappeared, and some of them I'm not even aware of yet, but I will find out, at some point that these people just aren't here anymore. And there's just so much left undone and unsaid. So it's more abstract and it's a little more minimalist than my usual. The other thing is it's a very cool color palette, and I usually use very rich tones and like vibrant color. And I'm known for doing works that are very positive and dreamlike. And this show has a little bit of that, but it also it explores some other areas that I've never gone before. So it's kind of raw yet. This one is Transfiguration, and I was thinking about all the people who'd been dating, or maybe they had, a new romance going, and then COVID shut everything down. And this woman is just by herself, playing herself like an instrument, and there's just a little bit of humor in that as well. But I'm very proud of this painting just because I like the color and the composition, and it flows really nicely, I think. So that's one that, she's just totally caught in some sort of musical trance, and I love it. The next one, The White Elephant in the Room. This painting has kind of a strange juxtaposition of these balls that are deliberately made to look like the COVID virus, and then this big white elephant just throwing them around, and there's like a rug on his back. There's this saying, the white elephant in the room, the thing that you can't talk about, or it's there, and everybody, it's like the undercurrent, and you can't sweep it under the rug. And there was such a media circus around COVID that all of that went into this painting. So this is a very good example of just how crazy things felt. And this one, The Gathering Sprite. This, I guess I was still in a playful mood here, but I was thinking about how people were hoarding things and how they were trying to create home sanctuaries, and apparently people were painting their houses more than ever before, according to some of the big box stores that sell paint. And what I was thinking of was the idea of a gathering spirit, just wanting to have all your treasures with you because you can't go anywhere or do anything else experiential, so you want to have it all right there with you. And then the dragonfly is ethereal and can't be gathered and is out there free. And so the sprite has all this treasure around, but is looking up at this thing that flies free. So just a little bit, and it's kind of storytelling, and it's kind of like children's bookish, and sometimes I just needed to retreat to something like that. The next two were started before the show. They fit really well, and I added to them. But what I like about Day and Night is that you've got this strange, surreal juxtaposition of day and night, but also this how things look differently from a different perspective, even if it's the same thing. And I really enjoyed doing this when it was challenging to just reverse everything completely. I even reversed my signature. The next painting, Solitary Peregrine, this is what became the poster. And there's a song by Leonard Cohen called Bird on a Wire that I think is a really, really decent song. But also, nature just kept doing its thing, and the peregrine is fine by itself. And so, to me, this was taking alienation and separation and all of that and changing it completely to Solitude, where it's just a positive thing, it's just fine, and you're by yourself, but it's beautiful. So I had moments where I didn't mind being separated from people. This one here, Superior Silence, is about one of the nation's major shipping channels going quiet, having nobody even moving anything around, any product, and the lighthouse light not even having to be lit because there's nothing moving, there's no boats. And just this really beautiful, natural silence that's created. And of course, it's just nighttime and it's all blue. And the peacefulness of it not being a negative thing, but just being an interesting thing. Okay, this one is called New Growth. And for me, it's very therapeutic because I was imagining coming out of this and having new ideas and new projects and things like that, and just feeling really driven towards doing those things because of this time where everything has been laying kind of fallow. And I like the colors. I really like the symbolism of it. And this is more the me, the soul of this painting connects to my soul, and this is more like my paintings usually look. And then right next to it is Lost. This is really about a student of mine who got a lot out of the after-school program that I was running pre-pandemic. And she seemed to find sanctuary here, and things were tough for her outside of this gifted and talented program. And she got picked on at school a bit. And I just worry about her. I think about her a lot because this was her place. The composition is about, and the reason it's large too is because a big deal in my life has been my friend Elisha's album that was supposed to come out just as everything was shutting down, and it got cut off. And then he tried to release it again in the summer, and that didn't work. Then he tried to make a music video to release, and then he was in an accident and had to recover from that. And he has such beautiful compositions, and I've seen him working on them. And it just, I wanted to have this be a part, this was a big part of my time during the shutdown. And I'm really proud of the angle of the Taylor guitar. It was really challenging, but I'm really happy about how that turned out. And the next one is even more about the delayed release, because it's just, emotionally, it was just really tough. And I think, just as excited as anybody about this album coming out. So it will be coming out June 18th this summer, but this is the empty stage that was just waiting for him. And I can't wait for him to be able to perform again in front of an audience. So this next one, Ice Houses, is something that stayed the same during the pandemic. And so for me, it was like a comforting sort of foundational thing. I'm not an ice fisherman, but every year on the ice on the lake, these little boxes, little tents, little houses show up, and these people go into them and do their thing, and it's sort of naturally like social alienation, and yet they're all doing the same thing, and they're friendly towards each other, but you know, everyone is in their own hut, so it works. So that stayed the same and was really, really nice to see. And this painting of Two Artists Lofts, a building that used to be an old YWCA in Mason City. This was the most irritating to paint. This one, I painted it in like an early American style, and that's not generally how I paint. It's kind of futzy. And I also put it in an early American style frame. I'm very happy with the way it turned out, but it just is so foreign to me to be painting with this much detail and using little brushes that only had like 3 or 4 hairs. And I'm just happy and relieved that it's done, basically. And the next one is Lorena Del Dia. And this one has some collage elements to it and was inspired by a local girl who, during the COVID outbreak, I got a chance to speak to her, and she talked about how upset and how depressed she was about the fact that she had been looking forward to prom and looking forward to graduation for a very long time, and she had saved up and bought a prom dress, and everything was canceled. So none of this happened, and I just really like her a lot and wish that she could be queen for a day. Now the next one, and this is the last one, is actually right by our guest book here, and it's called On the Way. And a lot of times during this whole, I don't even know what to call it yet, the whole debacle that occurred through the shutdown, the shelter in, COVID, a lot of times I would escape into my mind to a place that felt very, very good. And that place was Heartwood Retreat in Trego, Wisconsin. And it's in the North Woods. There's a lot of tamarack pines. And I just would see myself in a dream as I was falling asleep. I would see myself walking down this trail to the lodge, and maybe it was dewy or it was raining, and the air smelled very crisp and sharp and clear, and it would just take me out of all my worries, the whole news cycle, anything that was troubling me. And so this was a very important painting for me to do. I hope that it gives other people a sense of healthy solitude and just a walk in the woods, a road less traveled, something like that. Thank you so much for listening. I've never done this before, and it was a lot easier than I thought it would be. I was really stressed about it, actually. And I hope you get a chance to come into the gallery, but if not, I hope that this gives you somewhat of a feeling of being at the exhibition. I'd like to thank the State Arts Board for the grant. None of this could have happened without it. It really kind of lit a fire in me, and I had a deadline and I had a job to do, and it gave me some purpose. And so it's hard to be completely depressed when you've got something to do, and it's a good thing. Thank you.